All right, today we're diving into something called the Instance Theory of Automatization. I know, sounds a little academic, right? But trust me, it's the super fascinating idea that explains how we get good at, well, pretty much everything.
So think about this. How does a skill go from being super difficult and clunky to something you do completely on autopilot? I mean, remember learning to drive. Your hands were probably glued to the wheel, your brain was just screaming, trying to keep track of the pedals, the mirrors, the road, and now you just do it. How in the world does that happen? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into. We're talking about that journey, the journey to automatic.
And here's the thing, the answer isn't just, practice makes perfect. It's actually a lot cooler than that. The real secret? It's all about how our brain stores every single attempt we make.
Okay, so let's put a proper name to this whole process. What exactly is instance theory? So here's the big idea. It says that we don't get faster at something by just strengthening some vague, general rule in our head. No, what's really happening is that every single time you do something successfully, whether it's solving a simple math problem or hitting the right key on the keyboard, your brain basically takes a snapshot. It stores that specific action and its result as something called an instance. So getting skilled at something, it's really just your brain building up a huge library of these snapshots and getting lightning fast at pulling out the right one when it needs it.
This whole idea comes from a guy named GD Logan, way back in 1988. And his core concept is a race. Picture this. In one lane, you've got the algorithm. That's the slow, clunky, step-by-step process. That's you as a brand new driver, right? You're consciously thinking, okay, check the mirror. Now signal. Now turn the wheel. But in the other lane, you've got memory. That's you a year later, just knowing how to make the turn without thinking. And with every bit of practice, you're storing more and more of those successful memories. And pretty soon that memory lane starts winning the race, like every single time.
Oh, and a quick heads up. You might also hear this called the Instance Theory of Automaticity. Don't let it throw you off. It's the exact same powerful idea, just a slightly different name.
Okay, so this sounds like a really cool theory, right? But how do we know it's what's actually going on in our brains? Well, let's take a look at how scientists actually test this stuff.
So researchers have a couple of main tools in their toolkit for this. First up, you've got something called reaction time distributions. Basically, they don't just measure that you're getting faster, they look at how the speed of your answers changes. Are they getting more consistent, less all over the place? Then they also plot what are called learning curves. And this is awesome because it gives them a visual map of how you're improving, showing how your performance just shoots up with practice. And that visual lines up perfectly with this idea that we're shifting from slow, clunky calculation to super fast memory retrieval.
And I mean, just look at this chart. It shows it perfectly. That very first attempt takes a whole 1.5 seconds. But look, by the 50th try, you've almost cut that time in half. And by the 100th attempt, whoa, you're down to a fraction of a second. See, that's not just getting a little better. That's a massive fundamental shift in how your brain is even approaching the problem. That's that race we were talking about. And memory isn't just winning, it's winning by a total landslide.
So what's the best way to really wrap our heads around all this? Let's try an analogy. Think of your brain as a library of solutions.
Okay, so if there's one thing to take away, it's this. Every single time you practice something and get it right, you're not just practicing. You are adding a brand new book to a massive, ever-growing library inside your brain. When you first start, you have to write that book from scratch every single time, which is exhausting. But after a while, when the same problem pops up, you don't do the hard work anymore. You just walk over to the right shelf, pull down the book you already wrote, and bam, you've got the answer instantly. That, my friends, is automaticity.
It's a pretty wild idea when you think about it, right? That skill is really just a huge, incredibly fast memory system. Of course, this isn't the only theory out there on how we learn. And it kind of makes you wonder, if skill is just fast memory, how do other models, like the power law of learning, fit into our journey from total beginner to master? Definitely something to chew on.